Hi guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we're back with another deck breakdown, and the deck we'll be talking about today is Fire Ensoul Lorraine. This deck received a little bit of support from the latest set DTR, so we'll just go through it right now. Let's go through the material deck very quickly. We're playing Spirit of Fire, a personal preference of mine. I've always liked to have 7 cards in hand when I'm playing a fire deck, but there is an argument for this to be a fragmented Spirit of Fire, or I guess Serene Spirit of Fire as well. So you're able to glimpse and look for the Rile package. Your level 1 champion is Lorraine Wandering Warrior. This is very strong, allows you to get a free materialization. Your level 2 is Lorraine Blade Master, combos very well with sweeps, and because we are now playing 2 power swords, by itself, it's able to clear off strong allies such as Frostwind Paladin and Ace Protector. And our level 3 is Lorraine Crux Knight. Gets an additional 1 power for each sword in banishment. When you play an attack card, this card gets an additional 5 power in the list I'm playing. The Divine Relic we are playing is the Looking Glass. It's an additional regalia on the field for you to return back with Ghost of Pendragon later in the game. Also, this thing has Omnistride, so you pretty much can't interact with it. We are playing Sword of Shadows and Inner Sword as our 0 cost weapons for Lorraine to bring out. There are 2 power, 2 durability, 0 cost swords. We play 3 additional swords in the deck. One of them is Drawn Blade. When you're trying to look for cards, when you have like excess floating memories, you're just able to banish those floating memories to bring out a Drawn Blade, draw a card, and then play a Ghost of Pendragon to return the Drawn Blade back to the material deck. We play Warrior's Longsword, pretty much a 2 power, 2 durability sword. This slot is quite flexible. It can be any sword as long as it has 2 durability. This is the safest bet at the moment. The last sword is Votive Runeblade. This is the new sword, came out in DTR. Once you play your Ensoul with this sword, your Lorraine Crux Knight will be able to swing 3 times. We now have 2 slots left. One of them is Spellwood Scepter. This allows you to play through cards like Incapacitate so that you can play your Ensoul without worrying. And the last card is Backup Charger. There is argument for this card to be an additional sword, and I can definitely see that as well. At this point in time, I prefer to have an option to draw if I need to. That's the material deck, so let's move on to the main deck. We'll start off with 4 Dungeon Guide, pretty much a staple for Fire level 3 decks. This guide allows you to skip materialization. 4 liminal guides. Got the Spectre subtype, which is very important. Very, very strong because when you level up your champion, you get a body back and draw a card. Essentially acts like a floating memory. We play 4 Fluffy Shopkeep. Very, very good in this deck because it allows you to banish your swords. There are times where you are able just to kill your opponent by playing this card. Also very good early game as a 3 power interceptor. The last normal we play is 4 Stole Shieldmate, good generic card there. 4 Undying Dreams, Spectre subtype, and also Floating Memory. Its effect actually is not bad in itself. This at times can make a liminal guide a 3/4, being able to clear something. Moving on to the fire package, 3 Hasty Messages. The things you want to discard are Floating Memory, and cycling through your deck. 3 Flame Sweep, combos well with your level 2 Lorraine Wandering Warrior. Now as well with a 2 power sword, you're sweeping for 6. Very hard for allies to actually protect their board. Be aware though, if you are actually sweeping ephemerate allies, you don't get the on kill because they just get into the banishment. You don't actually get to draw a card. You also play 3 Rending Flames. Once you've played your Ensoul, your Lorraine Crux Knight gets 5 additional attacks. So when you play Rending Flames with it, you're dealing 8 damage, then double to 16. We played 3 Cremation Rituals. Very strong turn 1 play with Stole Shieldmate. Hasty only has 2 health, so most likely it will die next turn, so might as well sacrifice it to draw 2 additional cards. Also very good if your opponent is playing Lorraine because they might have sweeps, so this allows you to kind of clear off your board so they don't get any draws from their level 2. We played 3 Reduce to Ash. Yeah, every fire deck has to play this card now because Censor is a card. You cycle through your deck, so hopefully with only 3 copies you should be able to find one. We play 4 Creative Shocks. You don't get the class bonus because you're not a mage. Cycle and draw 2 cards and discard a Floating Memory. 4 Rile the Abyss. Turn 1, if you play this card, draw a card, discard a Liminal Guide and a Floating Memory. Yeah, you're just plussing all day. This card pretty much allows Fire to be a viable strategy once again. The next 2 cards are pretty much generic Floating Memories that we're running in the deck. The one that we can play is Reckoning's Wake because we have the Looking Glass. Pretty much this card is a fast Idle Thoughts. This card can be any floating memory that you want to run in the deck, to be honest, depending on your meta. Just the strongest generic one at the moment is probably this one, so which is why I'm playing 4 of them. And the other 4 is Even Current Radar. The important part of this is that it's got the subtype Spectre and it's a generic floating memory. So that leaves us with the Crux package, 4 Ghost of Pendragons, arguably the most powerful SR in the game. It's the most powerful ally in the game. 2 cost 3/4, which is very, very powerful and overstated. This is the reason why people play Crux, because you start off with the Looking Glass. This card can return the Looking Glass and your opponent pretty much can't do anything about it. I think Nathan ranted on about this. Like, now the only way to stop this card is Stifling Trap. Very, very strong card. We played 3 Ensoul. You could play 4. I just think 3 is probably enough because you only need to activate it once now to kind of finish the game off. Very, very powerful card, game ender, pretty much why we're playing this deck. The last 2 cards is 2 Crux Side. This is a good way to cycle through your Ghost of Pendragon or your Ensoul. That's it for the main deck. So the next thing we're going to do is talk about cards we could consider for the sideboard or for the main. So we'll start off the material deck cards. So Tariff Ring and Safeguard Amulet, very, very good depending on the meta. The Clarent package as well, so Clarent Imagine, Clarent Sword of Peace. I would probably put this in the sideboard just in case you're playing against decks that are throwing spells at you, spell damage against you. Talking about the 6 Sword before as well, when we're talking about the material deck, Carwainen, Grand Sommelier, Zephyr's Edge, cards that you can consider instead of Warrior's Longsword. Another card is Arendite. This could replace Warrior's Longsword. If you have excess floating memory, this card, it will hit harder, but if you don't, you hit for 2 less. It might actually be worth it. With 1 floating memory, I think you're hitting for 22. The downside is if you don't have any flow memory, you're hitting for 18. Other cards to consider for the main or sideboard is Meltdown, reversing Jin, like Shuangji, Berserker's Plate, Diana, Shadow's Twin, Polaris is now a card that you can hit as well. So same can be said about Varuk and Acolyte. So this card can be better than Reduce to Ash depending on the meta. Downside of it is that it's a slow speed and it can be targeted by Stifling Trap. But the plus side of Broken Acolyte is that it hits Diana's Aether charges. If there's a lot of Diana in your meta, you might want to consider Broken Acolyte. Blanche, Sheltered Saint, another stable card. You're playing a level 3 deck with a lot of influence. This card can prevent a lot of damage with her ability. Regal Inquisition, this card is good into Luxon. Especially if you have multiples, you can do a back-to-back Regal. I think that's quite strong. Next card is Resolute Stand. So very, very strong in the mirror, very strong into allies. Crystallized Destiny, this card's good, especially into things like Baneful Obligation, like preventing 15 damage is nice. Also, like preventing like a big swing from Lorraine in the mirror is good. The last one is Annul Spell. I'm a bit indifferent about it, to be honest, but if your opponent is a Fragmented or Serene Spirit champion, negating Aral the Abyss is very, very strong. So in terms of like flexible spots in the material deck, I think I mentioned that you do have Spell Spectre and Backup Charger as the flex spots, so those 2 can go out for any of these pieces, or Warrior's Longsword as well, sorry. In terms of the main board, I think the flex spot in this deck is obviously the Reduce to Ash. Like if you're playing against a fire deck, a fire level 3 deck, they're probably not running Sensor as well. So those 3 can go out for something else there. Flame Sweep can go out as well, depending on the matchups. You could probably reduce the amount of copies of Even Current Radar. Fluffy Shopkeep can go down a couple of copies as well. If you don't want to run a Reckoning's Wake, Fleeting Guard, Exercise Curses, and Fast Cure. I think Dun is very, very strong into these fire decks because there's no real defenses against it. So Exercise Curses might be useful in that matchup. Fast Cure, if you're playing against other Ral decks, the influence tends to get quite high and you might be able to just heal 4 with this card as well. So Fleeting Guard, it's got the Spectre subtypes. By itself, it's a Storm of Thorns. Once you bring back a Liminal Guide, it prevents 2. Preventing 1 damage might not seem like a lot, but if you're going wide, this card will can prevent up to 5 to 6 damage. So there's a couple of flex spots in the main board as well. So once you play with the deck, like just fine-tune it to the way you want. I think this deck is quite flexible. So yeah, that's it. That is all the cards that I can think of top of my head to recommend for the deck. Try out the deck and play around with the numbers and things like that. So now I kind of want to talk about the Ensoul Combo in particular. With my deck, I'm playing 5 swords. The maximum output damage that I can do with the 5 swords is 20 damage. Just kind of wanting to explain how to swing with Lorraine, so to maximize to get these 20 points of damage now. When you play your Ensoul, the 5 swords will come out onto the field. What you do then is you swing with all the swords but the Votive Rune Blade. That should be dealing 7 points of damage. 2 from Sword of Shadows, 2 from Ensoul, 2 from Warrior's Longsword, and 1 from the Drone Blade. The Drone Blade will then crack and go into the banishment. You will then swing with Lorraine Crux Knight using the Votive Rune Blade, sacrificing one of those swords. Sword of Shadows will then go into the banishment. Lorraine will wake up and 3 points of damage will go through, which makes it a total of 10. You will then swing again with Lorraine with Votive Rune Blade, and this time you will sacrifice the inner sword. There are now 3 swords in the banishment, and Lorraine's coming in with 1 power from the Votive Rune Blade, so that's 4 damage. Votive Rune will now crack it also, which is 14 points of damage, and you swing with the Warrior's Longsword with 4 cards in banishment, so that's 2 plus 4 equals 6, 6 plus 14 equals 20. That's how you swing with 5 swords. With 6 swords, the combo is pretty much the same, but the last sword you bring out is probably Carwainen. That's pretty much the combo with Ensoul. I think this deck is quite simple to play. Your game plan is quite easy to do. I guess the ceiling for this deck is quite high. Like, you could be a good Ensoul player to a great Ensoul player. You could see the difference once you start playing in the mirrors. So now that we've talked about the deck, I just want to talk about some cards you got to watch out for when you play this deck. Things like Incapacitate. You don't want to walk into that. Like, you don't want to pay 6 for your Ensoul to be incapacitated, because that normally means your turn is gone. Cards like Resolute Stand and Veiling Breeze. So even though your opponent might have 1 or 2 cards in hand, just don't go all in. They could still have those kinds of cards to prevent them from dying, and then they might get you on a crackback because of what you just did. Yeah, but again, this is my deck tech video. I hope you guys like it. The deck is fun. The game plan is quite simple, but because of the simplicity of that game plan, the deck can also be easily counted. If you've got any questions, please feel free to comment down below. In the meantime, enjoy, guys. Welcome to Fire Meta. Catch us later.